Greetings, Ambassador Rexer. I am Ruhr, representing the Kellyan Republic. I've heard that the grown government is still debating the decision to join the Galactic Compact. Such a commitment is undeniably significant, but if you'll allow me, I would like to share a story rather than simply list our merits or the benefits of alliance. It's a bit lengthy, but I believe it captures my thoughts more meaningfully. Many centuries ago, the Krell, my people, had only just discovered the basics of space travel. We had reached our system's fifth planet. Our own world is the second from our star, but we hadn't gone beyond. Our progress slowed as the costs became unsustainable compared to the limited returns. Rising tensions among our world's primary nations signaled an impending war, draining resources from scientific endeavors and especially from space exploration. Like many civilizations, we dreamed of faster-than-light travel, both in scientific studies and in the tales of our writers, yet progress remained elusive, just as it had been for decades. We were at the brink of abandoning space research altogether, looking inward for solutions to either prevent the approaching war or secure victory if conflict proved unavoidable. Then, a strange anomaly appeared within our system, hanging in the void between the last two planets. It didn't orbit our star, but seemed to drift alongside it. As a diplomat, I won't pretend to grasp all the scientific details, but our experts identified it as a wormhole, a portal linking to another point in space. This discovery sparked excitement throughout our world. The anomaly stirred our people and the media alike, and as hope for a shared pursuit emerged, the threat of war began to subside. Scientists from rival nations joined forces to design new spacecraft with enhanced propulsion to navigate various launch windows. We all knew this phenomenon could vanish as mysteriously as it appeared, and our limited knowledge led us to believe such portals might be unstable. So speed became essential. Yet, in retrospect, I wonder if it was more our sense of seizing a unique moment, a chance to avert the looming devastation that truly drove us forward. Volunteers came forward, though I'm not sure they all truly volunteered, despite what the official records might suggest. Each major nation sent 2 brave representatives, 6 in total. Equipped with specially outfitted vessels, they set off for the wormhole. Their mission was to pass through, scan what lay beyond, and return. Yet things did not unfold as planned. One pilot returned after missing a transfer window and failing to reach the wormhole. But the others, they disappeared, lost to the mystery on the other side, leaving no word or signal behind. You see, we didn't grasp the true nature of wormholes back then. A path from point A to point B doesn't necessarily mean a path exists back from point B to point A. In fact, point B might not even have a return entrance, or it could send a traveler to an entirely different point C. On top of that, wormhole destinations shift based on the universe's timeline. We now understand that wormhole travel is closer to a gamble than a reliable method of transportation, which makes it unfit for any structured network. Should you join, I'm sure your scientists will receive a comprehensive analysis on this. With no return from our expedition and no communication from those who ventured through, we ultimately decided to let the mystery rest. Despite this disappointment, the collaborative efforts during the mission fostered stronger ties between our world's major powers, which persisted long after. Public opinion leaned toward unity. No one felt the urge for conflict. This led to increased trade and technological progress, though we kept space travel largely on hold. However, the youth who followed the wormhole saga grew up deeply captivated by space exploration. I understand, from your cultural database, you have a story called The Castaway of the Golden Horn. Similarly, we had tales of the daring souls who ventured through the wormhole, stories of those lost but surviving on unknown planets, adapting to alien landscapes. These stories sparked curiosity in new generations, inspiring a steady stream of young engineers and leaders ready to fund the dream of exploration. In time, the Rudder Nation fractured into smaller states, leaving 2 superpowers, but peace held between them. Forgive my rambling, I can see I've overstayed my welcome in this story. In brief, after about a century, we attempted another mission. This time, volunteers from the leading nations launched once more into the great expanse. Unlike before, they returned, marking our first true success. It was also the day we made first contact, though it proved a regretful occasion. Our newfound neighbors were a brutal, deceitful species and openly hostile from the outset. After deciphering our languages and engaging in initial cultural exchange, we learned they followed a strict theocracy that practiced sacrificial rites with sentient beings. Our refusal to take part in their rituals led them to sever communications. But no matter, we continued to explore and soon encountered 3 additional species. One of these was the Coral, a trading race. They were tolerable, though not the most dependable. We exchanged information with them, but the relationship relationship remained stagnant. One of the other species was impossible to communicate with due to fundamental differences in how we perceive the universe. Apparently, their experience of time itself was unlike ours. The last one eventually threatened war over what they saw as a grave insult. Disheartened, we withdrew to our own system, giving up on long-range space travel. A century passed, with only sporadic contact with the coral. For the most part, we felt more isolated than ever. And, as we learned, being alone is one thing, but feeling trapped in a crowded room where no one understands you is even worse. Then, one day, reports came of a massive fleet dropping out of FTL at the edge of our system. Initial descriptions said that several ships were colossal, bristling with what looked like advanced weaponry. The fleet numbered around 30 vessels. Fearing the worst, an invasion or subjugation, we braced ourselves. The fleet advanced to the center of our system, moving in a straight, direct path. I know your people are new to FTL travel, so perhaps you can appreciate our amazement. Direct travel like that, without regard for orbits, demands immense amounts of thrust. Primitive space travel requires launch windows and curved transfer orbits for efficiency. For any fleet to travel in a straight line, fuel has to be a non-issue. While FTL allows such movement across great distances, it's far too risky for use within a system's confines due to instability at shorter ranges. And even if we did try, we would only ever use FTL to move outward toward deep space, not inward toward our star. Yet here was this fleet, which had appeared a light day away, waited in place for an entire revolution of our planet, and then accelerated to nearly the speed of light on a direct course toward us. Our system's nations disagreed on how to respond. One began readying for combat, while another took a more cautious approach. But the fleet stopped short at the fourth planet. Soon, we received a radio transmission. Our scientists hurried to confirm its source, eager to validate that it came from exactly where we thought. The voice that spoke was in an old, rural dialect from our world, a language almost no one used anymore except the elderly and a few farmers. It said, "Greetings, Krell. We are humanity. We come with a matter of importance and request permission to approach the second planet in your system. We humbly ask that you send a diplomatic delegation to our lead vessel when we arrive." It was humanity, the co-founders of the Galactic Compact and its largest faction. Naturally, we were stunned. Why had they come with such a massive fleet, only to ask for permission so politely? And why had they lingered at the system's edge for a full day? Suspicion naturally lingered. Some of our military strategists theorized that this might be some elaborate pre-war ritual, a formal declaration given in person, a thought that haunted our leaders. Why, too, did they speak our language? If they had used the dominant dialect, it might have been reasonable. Signals in common dialects frequently leaked into space via our audiovisual broadcasts. But these aliens arrived speaking a rural, outdated form, a dialect we would call, in human terms, country bumpkin. How long had they observed us to mimic it so perfectly? There was little choice, we had to comply. We granted them permission, and the human fleet moved into orbit. Our top diplomats and linguists, from each major nation, were assembled onto a shuttle and sent up to meet the visitors. They appeared visibly shaken, like they were being sent to the gallows. Here, take a look. I have footage of it on my datapod. You see them boarding, looking pale and hesitant, don't you? I can only imagine their apprehension in that moment. As they neared, a small interceptor ship from the human fleet approached and signaled our shuttle, instructing them to follow to a docking bay. Of course, they complied. Later journal entries described their first impressions of the humans as odd-looking and having strange habits that made it difficult to interpret their intentions. No doubt the humans were equally tense. The humans introduced themselves, though I'm afraid I can't recall anyone's name on either side. I feel a bit guilty admitting that, but there it is. The humans began sharing a story with our delegation, one that revolved around a male named Rut. Apparently, he had appeared near the outer edge of their system, close to their Oort cloud, strange name, but it sticks in my memory, and had no way of returning. The humans had found him, brought him to their home planet, Earth, and spent months trying to understand his language, which turned out to be that same rural dialect they were using. In time, they became close with him, and Rut lived out a full life on Earth, where he became both well-known and respected. The humans explained that they had wanted to make contact with us sooner, but faced limitations. First, they hadn't been certain of our exact system location. Second, Rut had explained that our civilization hadn't yet reached FTL travel. Their people strongly believe in non-interference with developing pre-FTL societies, a principle reinforced through their fictional narratives, which helped shape their official policy. In fact, they practice a similar non-interventionist approach on Earth itself, where they leave a remote island community untouched by technology until they choose to reach out. Apologies for the digression, let me continue. The humans explained that Earth, their home, lies over 33,000 light-years away, on the far side of the massive black hole at the galaxy's core. News of our FTL advancement had taken years to reach them, passed through various trading factions, including the Coral, along with our coordinates. They described their journey, spanning over 7 years with their then-limited FTL range, and how they had waited at our system's edge for a full day, allowing the light to travel and alert us to their presence rather than appearing abruptly in orbit. They told us how Rut's presence had rekindled humanity's drive to explore and find new life, a passion that had faded due to their hostile, war-driven neighbors. Though they'd emerged victorious from 2 devastating wars, humanity had grown cautious and withdrawn, focusing on defensive technology and advanced FTL capabilities instead. After relaying all this, a signal was given, and 6 humans entered the room, guiding a glass box that hovered waist-high on a floating tray. With solemnity, they explained that they had promised Rut he would someday rest on his ancestral world. Inside the box lay a preserved male of our kind, aged and marked by deep laughter lines, yet still strong for one of such years. In that moment, we understood. The military fleet hadn't come to threaten us. It was an honor guard for Rut. The funeral was arranged at his ancestral family's burial site, per the human's request, as this had been Rut's last wish. His surviving relatives were in attendance, including a niece, now herself of advanced age and the last among us to have known him personally. The humans introduced a custom unfamiliar to us at the time, the eulogy, in which those close to the deceased or those deeply affected by their actions speak in remembrance. This tradition has since become a vital part of our own funeral rites, woven into every culture on our planet. At the time, we had no unified planetary government, so the question arose over who should deliver the eulogy. Ultimately, the task was given to the head of the All-Nation Trade and Maritime Law Organization, as her position spanned the greatest number of Krell nations and cultures. Although she came from one of our largest nations, she delivered her remarks in the language of the other leading nation, a customary compromise that had long fostered peace and cooperation. In time, that organization merged with the major nations to form the Kellian Republic, the official representative body of our world. Then, an elderly human, weathered and frail, shared his memories of meeting Rut as a young man in a local tavern. He recounted how Rut, already advanced in age, would spend countless evenings with him over cups of a drink called cider, speaking passionately about his distant home. Rut had often marveled at humanity's impressive scientific and technological achievements, yet he also shared knowledge that was new even to them. He had traveled to nearly every corner of Earth, witnessing its waterfalls and ice caps, wonders foreign to our world. The elder human described how Rut had felt comfortable among them, finding similarities in their worldviews. Rut had once remarked that humanity seemed to have built upon Krellian philosophies, adapting and expanding them into actionable principles. For example, where Krell society held a basic belief in sovereignty for all at the familial level, humanity had extended this concept to individuals, allowing equality and opportunity regardless of class, language, religion, gender, sexuality, race, or even species. This philosophy of all sapiens are sovereign has since become integral to our own beliefs. The man went on to share that Rut had once received a medal from local authorities for saving a human child caught in a flood, after which he was treated to free sitter for a whole week. During this time, he experienced his first bar fight, a fight he lost due to humanity's greater physical strength, but one that earned him even more friends. Humanity, as the elder explained, values the courage to stand up for oneself and rarely holds grudges over physical scuffles. However, he noted with a grin that humans do hold long-lasting grudges against those who harm the vulnerable. With a hearty laugh, a sound our ancestors likely found startling, the human recalled Rut's first encounter with a dog, a fluffy creature descended from wolves. At first, Rut had been so startled that he leaped into nearby bushes, refusing to come out for hours. But when a human handed him a puppy, the little creature simply stared at him, sniffed, and licked his face. From then on, Rut grew fond of dogs and eventually had 2 of his own. One he named Peon, which means star in our language, and the other he called Desert, after a barren landscape on Earth, a name chosen for the dog's similarly colored fur. I'll tell you, if your people decide to join the compact, I highly recommend getting a dog. I have one myself, a germ chard named You, inspired by a human celebration held at year's end. She's incredibly affectionate, and I can't help but gush when I remember how she used to look up at me as a pup, expecting a cuddle. My apologies, it's just something dogs bring out in you. As the funeral drew to a close for our unexpected ambassador to the stars, who had forged bonds with an alien species without us even knowing, the impact of the eulogy was profound. Tears filled the eyes of many Krell, whether present or watching through the wireless, as they listened to the words of respect spoken by another species about one of our own. This outpouring of emotion is why the eulogy became an immediate tradition for us. In fact, statistics now show a decrease in depressive episodes following funerals, something the human say is part of the mind's healing process. Rut was then carefully carried to his family's tomb by 6 bearers, 3 Krell and 3 high-ranking humans, lifting him by hand. This was a gesture we adopted from humanity. Previously, we'd used a small cart to move coffins to the tomb, but when the humans suggested carrying the deceased by hand, our leaders saw the respect it symbolized. With the help of human materials engineers, we erected a statue over Rut's tomb to honor this true first contact. Not the one that happened after we achieved FTL with hostile aliens, but the one that took place quietly a century earlier. The statue was based on a video provided by the humans, showing the moment when the door of Rut's capsule opened onto their ship, and our 2 species reached out across the space, hands extended in tentative but hopeful greeting. In this small yet profound way, humanity transformed our funerals, showing new respect to the departed and positively affecting the mental well-being of the living, all without changing the foundation of our beliefs. They rekindled our hope for life beyond our system, offered us a friend with no conditions, and generously shared their scientific knowledge. Then, when it was time, they departed on their long journey home, inviting us to join them in the stars whenever we were ready. Humans come from an unimaginably distant place, yet knowing there exists a people willing to make such a long journey, nearly a tenth of their lifespan for the round trip, simply to keep a promise to one they respected, to return the body of an alien being to its kin, left a lasting impact on us. They treated both the living and the dead from another world with the same dignity they reserve for their own. They took in a being who was utterly foreign to them, giving him a life so fulfilling that his face bore deep, happy lines despite his homesickness. After withdrawing from the galaxy in disillusionment, they reached out again in friendship, all for the sake of one good person. This profoundly inspired us and, I believe, made us better. That is why, Ambassador Rexer, I think the Grown should consider joining the Galactic Compact as we did, particularly since our cultures share several philosophies. We live in a universe too hostile to face alone. I won't get into the details, but a century after Rut's story, once humanity's FTL jumps improved to allow them to reach us in a mere month, they came to our aid when we were thrust into a war with our theocratic neighbors. With their help, the war ended swiftly, saving an estimated 4 billion lives. When we asked their admiral what they wanted in return, he simply replied, nothing. It was the right thing to do, and it's what Rut would have wanted. Extend our trade agreement if you'd like. None of them had ever met Rut personally, yet they spoke of him as if he were family. For the humans, Rut truly was family. They ask for only your trust, and in return, they will guard you, support you, even carry you if need be. They will encourage you toward greater moral and ethical strength simply by living out their values, by acting on what they believe is right. That we, the Kel, have become respected in part due to adopting their philosophies is something we take pride in. Consider this as you report to your leaders. In the meantime, I should head back. You'll need to be fed. Perhaps you'd like to join us for dinner this weekend? You can meet her, and I'll prepare our national dish. Wonderful. I'll be in touch soon.